classic Mega Man NES hexalogy was an iconic part of retro gaming history for a very good reason. At first, it started out as a flawed game that didn't sell that many copies, but things changed when its sequel was released, and the hype was at its peak when 3 came out. From 1987 to 1994, Capcom's flagship Mega Man franchise started and gained a renowned legacy on the NES console. Suffice to say, Capcom had a good relationship with Nintendo's hardware, so much so, from 1990 to 1994, there were actually 5 lesser-known Mega Man games released on the original Game Boy. Now, judging from the titles of 2 through 5, it's very easy to assume that they're just nothing more than watered-down versions of the console games, akin to the DuckTales Game Boy ports. And while many gameplay elements are borrowed from the console games, these are all actually a side series separate from the NES games. They all have their own self-contained stories, different level layouts, for the most part, a few new bosses, and even new features that are so good, they actually put them in the later console games. So the big question is, does this pentalogy of Game Boy games deserve to be forgotten about in favor of their console counterparts? Hello everyone, Alec the SideQuest Gamer here, and welcome to part 1 of the Mega Man Game Boy Retrospective. Except it's not! April Fools! Haha! You just got SQG'd! Now you're just gonna have to tolerate this review of... what is it called? Green Biker Dude.
The SideQuest Gamer Review Show!
I know what you Mega Man fans are thinking. Wait, this exists? Like, why? Why would someone make a game based off this nothing character? But if you've actually played Mega Man X2, you clearly know why Green Biker Dude is such an iconic character in the fandom. He was fighting alongside X when they were taking out a new Maverick Uprising 6 months after Sigma's death in X1, and on the way to destroy the Maverick factory, he made the ultimate sacrifice and did a wheelie into an incoming laser, so he died rather quickly, but not in vain. What a hero. Some people could say that Green Biker Dude's death gave X an incentive to avenge him, but I seriously doubt that since he was already avenging Zero in this mission. And to be blunt, I seriously doubt that X even cared because it sure didn't give the audience a reason to give a But let's rewind a bit before X2. Chronologically, this game I assume takes place in between X1 and X2, or maybe during X1. I have no idea, as the whole game is Green Biker Dude's training before he actually goes out and hunts Mavericks. And we all know that becoming a Maverick hunter isn't as easy as just putting in a job application and boom, interview, and then you're hired. And given how that's not exactly simple, Green Biker Dude really has his work cut out for him. Remember those hover bikes you would ride in X2 and X4? Well, that's the entire game. I'm not even kidding. The whole game is like the worst Mega Man X4 stage, except it feels like a fusion between X2 and X4's motorcycle, where you can only go in one direction like in X4, slow down like in X4, but you can't use the ram attack like you could in X4. You can shoot from your hover bike, which is ideal for taking out enemies that get in your way, or just run into them, but that would cost you a bit of health, and mind you, there are no health pickups in this game, which segues into my next point. This game is not easy. Even not easy, it's not easy. It does require some level memorization and a little common sense to get through the barrage of enemies and obstacles. The first stage is Storm Eagle's area. It presents the simple standing enemies, helicopter enemies, and motorcyclist enemies that present a danger to the player, but not only that, there are a set of boxes that can either be jumped onto or destroyed by the lasers. It's all a fairly standard obstacle course, but the second stage, being Launch Octopus's stage, spikes in difficulty with spikes. Seriously, those things take out a lot of health, and you only have a split second to dodge them, which makes a previously alright playstyle into somewhat irritating. But then the third and fourth stages, being X1's intro stage and Sigma Fortress 1 stages respectively, are just pretty much similar in structure, where you can speed up and use the ramp to fly over various obstacles and enemies, but miss out on point pickup items, and of course do some more challenging jumps on various platforms than the previous stages. But because the platforms are so narrow in the later parts of the stages, you'll get bounced around constantly. So there's not really much in these stages that I can outright say is outstanding, other than the visuals being familiar to X1 veterans. Sure, there's some skill involved, like how to deal with pursuing motorcyclist enemies, but the level design relies mostly on memorization, which becomes a bigger problem in normal difficulty mode when they introduce bottomless pits that are near impossible to predict. and if you fall into those, you die and have to restart the level, which is just irritating when I know I didn't see it coming. But that's not the only problem with this game. The main problem with the game is that the bike itself kind of controls like the one in X4, but kind of not. You can speed up and slow down with the left and right arrow keys, jump and shoot, but even then it's not the best bike controls I played in a 2D side-scroller, and that's something that Capcom also didn't get quite right either with X4 and X5. Like, playing as Mega Man X in the X games gives you so much freedom with its control scheme, whereas X feels like an extension of the player. Every jump and shot feels like you made those, every dash feels like you made it since you have full control of when the dash stops with just a jump. But with the hover bike, you don't really have that luxury. Speeding up feels like you're losing control and just asking for enemies to fly right into you. I mean, sure, you'd want to slow down, but slowing down costs time, so you'll most likely end up memorizing a level more often than you are having a good time. And that's my problem with the hover bike in this game. Because you're riding so quickly in a 4x3 screen, you're not given enough time to anticipate the incoming obstacles and even bottomless pits for the normal difficulty. And similar things can be said about the slightly better but still flawed bike sections in X4 and X5. They have a similar problem, except at least they have some health pickups and a ramming attack. But to X4 and X5's defense, there were no widescreen TVs back then, while by the time this game was made, widescreen monitors were a common thing. If the developer, being Blika, really wanted to keep the aspect ratio that bad, why not just make the sprites smaller so the player is given more time to anticipate obstacles? That would be a much better alternative, but as it is, it's playable and has some fun things about it, even if it could have used some adjusting. And the final boss in the 5th level doesn't make things much better either, since it kind of feels like a war of bullet attrition. Like, all I had to do was literally just back up a bit and held the jump key while I repeatedly shot at it and its deployed walkers, and boom, it's dead. Cue the ending. There's nothing to it. There's hardly any complex attack pattern that you have to memorize.
And to be honest, the other modes aren't that much better, sadly.
Time Attack just has you race for the best time in any stage, but the design of those stages are from the normal difficulty, meaning bottomless pits galore. And the same can be said for Versus, where you race a second player. Too bad it's not online multiplayer, but it's more traditional to the couch multiplayer you would know on the SNES. Now, funny enough, if you select global records on a title screen, your web browser opens up to the page on Blika's website, and you can see where you rank. And of all the people in the world, all 7 billion, I actually ranked number 15 and 16 on the roster. Heck yeah! Although that's because so few played this game, so it's not really much of an accomplishment. Like, I didn't even try and manage to be on this list. And I'm not even that MLG at the game either. Like, I would never make world records like that. I would just play the game like anyone else would. So even though it's not the game I was hoping it could be, I will give credit where credit is due. Green Biker Dude did an excellent job in keeping the aesthetics familiar to the source material, and for what it's worth, I do love the fan service ending, whereas what was simply a stupid 10-second death that you forgot about became all about how Green Biker Dude transformed from a one-dimensional character to a Maverick Hunter chosen to accompany X for the second Maverick Uprising, only for GBD to heroically do a wheelie into an incoming laser which resulted in his death, with some quoted text pretty much summing up what the super hardcore X2 fans have said, including myself, although I wasn't serious about that. And the music is straight out of X1 for its respective stages, with the exception being the X3 ending scroll theme being played in a different key for the Green Biker Dude ending scroll. Sure, some may call that lazy and unoriginal, but at the same time, they're rips of some really high quality music on the SNES, with all of its glorious limited instrument samples intact. It's meant to keep the feel of an SNES game, like even the fan-made box art is trying to be like some lost SNES game from another dimension. So for atmosphere's sake, while I would have preferred a brand new soundtrack that sounds like it's from an SNES game, kind of like what the in-development fan game Mega Man X Corrupted is doing, the rips of the X1 soundtrack is completely acceptable, especially since the training courses are supposed to be the stages from X1.
So overall, Green Biker Dude is okay. Despite the design issues, I did have some fun here and there. I love the fact that this game exists on the internet. The fact that Blika64 took time out of his many days to actually program a game based off a meme that only the Mega Man fanbase would find funny. That's just awesome, you know? That's just brilliant. Even if the game isn't as brilliant.
Green Biker Dude is the kind of game that's only meant for the fans, and since it was designed that way and it's free on the internet, it's pretty harmless, even though fan games like Mega Man Unlimited did so much more, even non-fans or new fans liked it. I honestly still can't believe this concept got off the drawing board, but that just goes to show how awesome fan game designers are. Laika is keeping the spirit of Mega Man X alive, even when Capcom would rather focus on another classic Mega Man game.
And would you believe me if I told you that Laika has made more games based off minor characters in the Mega Man franchise?
I'm not even kidding, he has a website full of these types of fan games that are just weird concepts that actually made it off the drawing board. It's called Blaika's Legend Station, and you'd really be amazed by how many of these games he's made. I know a lot of these are based off Mega Man Legends, which I've yet to finish any of those games since I'm not really a fan of that series, but we have weird games like Super Danny 2, Starman Upgraded, and what the is a Just Man. So if you want to check any of these games out, go ahead. I definitely will be playing Starman Upgraded sometime because the idea of a Robot Master from Mega Man 5 is mad that he wasn't in Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy and now wants to defeat those Star Droids. That's just funny. That's amusing. Maybe next April Fool's Day I'll review it, but no promises.
But until then, I hope this was a satisfying enough video to keep you folks entertained. You know, it's good enough for like a second episode of the SideQuest Gamer Review Show Season 5. And like last year, this April Fool's joke, it's not the review itself is a joke. The review is pretty serious about each aspect of the game and all that. The only joke in this April Fool's joke is that I reviewed a game like this. I took time out of my day, took several days to edit this video, and actually gave a game like this the time of day. I know, hilarious. I also may have ticked off some people who are really looking for the Game Boy retrospective, but don't worry, part 1 will be out soon. And I actually mean soon this time. I don't mean just like some ambiguous kind of soon, and it's like a year and a half from now, because, you know, that's not soon, that's very distant in the future. But until then, thank you so much for watching this episode, and as always, remember to stay awesome!